All right, good morning, sir. So excited to have you here. I'll let you tell a little bit, but fellow HMS alum, Helena High alum, doing this Bob lesson. I think I'm going to name this Perspective and Gratitude. So, welcome. We've been talking for about a month now over Facebook Messenger. You were in the Congo in Africa, and so you're finally back in the States for a minute. So, welcome. Super excited to have you here today.
Great to be here. Thank you, Kevin.
So, obviously, your name is Thomas Nybo. Do you want to tell them a little bit about, real quick, your background, where you're from, how you grew up?
Sure. So I spent my first 18 years in Helena. I grew up just up the street from the Helena Middle School, went to Central School, and then Helena Middle School and Helena High School.
So it's
And
interesting.
then went,
Yeah, you and I had the same Central HMS, Helena High, which some of our students will have. And now you're a journalist by trade, right?
I am. I worked for CNN for 7 years. I was one of the things I did there. I was a war reporter in the Iraq War, and after that, I was hired at UNICEF. So I travel around the world for UNICEF doing still photography and short films on children in dangerous situations.
Wow. And I think that's how I came across. I'll get to it at the end. I remember growing up and seeing your Hall of Fame picture in the Helen I Hall of Fame. And then I think we have a mutual educator friend where he posted some of his stuff on his Facebook. And then I friended you. And then I got watching your stuff and I was like, wow, this is incredible. I got to find a way to connect with this guy someday. And then I saw you did the graduation speech for Helena High a couple years ago. Went and watched some of that. It was pretty inspiring stuff.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, just shoot me any questions and I'll fill
Awesome.
in any blanks.
So, so you go out and report on what in the counseling world call the human condition, which is very different from what a lot of kids are living here in Helena, Montana, whatnot. Most recently, I saw you were in the Congo, or what is it, the DR Congo?
Yeah, Democratic Republic of the Congo.
Congo. So we've got some very crazy stuff going on there. I don't know if the kids know or they watch CNN Student News. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. And then before that, you were in Bangladesh. So you basically go out and report to the rest of the world on the human condition, specifically with kids and some of the things that are going on in the world. Is that correct?
Exactly right. My last assignment, I spent 90 days in DR Congo, and I went there to cover an Ebola outbreak. It's the worst Ebola outbreak, well, the second worst Ebola outbreak in the history of the world. And what made it especially challenging is it's in a part of the country where there's a lot of fighting going on. So it's
Mm-hmm.
very unstable. There are a lot of different armed groups that are fighting over mineral resources. So it's kind of like what you might think of like the Wild West. There
Mm-hmm.
are a lot of prospectors, not a whole lot of law enforcement,
Mm-hmm.
and so there's a lot of instability. And one of the challenges that's happening there is a lot of these villages think that the people who are going to save them from Ebola, the health workers, are actually spreading it. So
Mm-hmm.
what's happening is some armed groups are attacking the health workers, the very people who are there
Wow.
trying to save them. So when that happens, we have to leave these areas, and Ebola, which is very contagious and very deadly, has a chance to spread. And this outbreak has been going on for 16 months. And so I go there and I tell the story of children who have gotten Ebola and survived, sometimes children who didn't survive, families. There are a lot of really inspiring people who are working to save the lives of these children and these families. The doctors who are in the Ebola treatment center, a very dangerous spot, the nurses, and there are a lot of people behind the scenes. So there have to be people who go in and disinfect the houses and burn the
Mm-hmm.
old mattresses
Mm-hmm. I saw
after
that.
someone gets
Yeah.
Ebola.
Yeah.
So it's an army of people who are going out there doing this crucially important work, trying to save these children and these
Mm-hmm.
families.
So, and then you've got two things going on. You've got this deadly disease or virus. I'm not up with
It's a
science.
virus.
It's a
Yep.
virus that's spreading, and then you also have misinformation going on. And so then to solve that is kind of a puzzle. It sounds like, and it sounds like it's very dangerous to be there.
It's very dangerous. There have actually been a number of health workers who've been killed. There have been offices that have been burned to the ground. There was an Ebola treatment center that was burned to the ground in January. They had to rebuild it, and they have armed guards.
Mm-hmm.
There are areas that we travel to in the Congo where we have to wear, like a helmet and a protective
Wow.
bulletproof vest just in case we're attacked. I mean, we
Yeah.
do security assessments, but
Yeah.
it's a very dangerous,
Yeah.
tricky
It's
situation.
very courageous and commendable of what you're doing for other people. It's very selfless. So just want to applaud you on that. Before you were in Bangladesh, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's a very difficult assignment too. I've been working. I spent a couple of years following a group of refugees. They're the Rohingya refugees who were forced out of. They come from the country of Myanmar,
Hmm.
and they are a minority. They're a Muslim minority, and then the Buddhist majority targeted them and wanted them out of the country. So they attacked and burned down their villages. They murdered a lot of the Rohingya people, and so the Rohingya people went across the border into Bangladesh.
Hmm.
And so I spent 3 months there earlier this year, and a lot of time there last year and the year before that, covering this huge group of people. There were over 1 million people who were forced out of their homes, and they basically went into an area. If you imagine the area up on Mount Helena,
Hmm.
one day it's got trees and grass, and then within weeks it's got all these plastic tents with
Hmm.
1 million people living in it. Picture all
All
of
of
the people in the
Montana.
state of
Yeah.
Montana in this one little area, and that's the situation you have with the Rohingya.
So living in an extremely impoverished conditions, kids 11, 12, 13, 14 year olds, just like our HMS students. And that's kind of the point or the perspective that I wanted to have you help lend me today is living in very, very, very different parts of the world that are living in different parts of the world, living in different conditions than our kids do.
Yeah, it's interesting too. If you think about children your age in a place like Bangladesh or the Congo, a lot of them don't even have the opportunity to go to school. So what that means is they grow up not even knowing how to read or write.
Hmm.
So they never get a chance to really make any kind of money. So they're just kind of day to day. They're selling stuff or growing food just enough to feed their family, and it's a really difficult life and no real way to build for the future. So
Hmm.
that's one thing that I try to relate to, is just to really appreciate what you have. But I think you need to go farther than that,
Hmm.
because I grew up in the same classrooms that you're in now. I got a journalism degree from the University of Montana. I would really encourage you to look at the world at large and spend time visiting some of these places. Maybe you go learn Spanish in Guatemala,
Hmm.
or you do a backpacking trip with your friends in Europe, just to get out there and to experience the world. And one of the things that it does is it really helps you appreciate what you have, and it helps you appreciate what you like about Montana,
Hmm.
and what you appreciate about Montana.
Absolutely. So I made a little list just because being a school counselor here, I'm going to preface this saying some of our kids really do deal day in, day out with some very real stuff, some very difficult stuff. 9 times out of 10, it's always outside of their control, like many of the kids that you've witnessed in your last two assignments in Bangladesh or in the Congo. Just going to go down a list of typical maybe kid complaints or things. Got the phone taken away or their phones run out of data. Friendship issues at this age are kind of the mainstream. Parents being too demanding or being too strict, or maybe the other side of that, lack of parent engagement. Maybe parents aren't there, or maybe parents are struggling with their own substance abuse, incarceration, so on and so forth. Too much homework. Teachers are assigning too much homework. Teachers are being too demanding. A lot of kids just no motivation to get out of bed, or no motivation, no industriousness about them to work and make something happen. Not seeing the importance of school in general, like blowing it off, I'll figure it out someday. Or maybe material items not having as much as some of the other kids. And so when I look at some of those things, and then I compare it to, well, maybe you tell me, what would the average kid in Bangladesh or the average kid in the Congo, what would be their complaints?
Their complaints are not enough food to eat. Their complaints would be not a shelter that protects them from the rain. Their complaints would be not even being able to go to a school to get any kind of an education. Because what what a difficult situation does for these children is it makes them focus on what they want. They know what they don't want. They don't want to live in a place where they don't have a toilet, where they don't have, at least 1 or 2 meals a day. So they know to get that, they need to get an education, or they need to figure out how to get to the point where they can kind of, for lack of a better term, follow their dream and do the kind of things they want to do. And I would challenge you, because this is a pretty extensive list that you put together, and a lot of these criticisms can be addressed by just, I hate to preach it all, but just kind of figuring out what it is that excites you about life. If you're bored, you're boring. And I would just kind of own that and figure out, well, what does inspire you? Where do you want to be in life? And almost anything that you want to do and get to is going to require, getting through school and maybe getting some more school or some technical training or joining the military, whatever it is that helps you get there. But that would be my one bit of advice is figure out what excites you, what motivates you, and what you need to do to get there.
Yeah. What would the average 11 or 14-year-old in any of those two countries, what would they say about having the opportunity that our kids have?
It's interesting because a lot of them, it's not even in their consciousness, because to them it's just something that they'll never have. In the case of the Rohingya, they don't even have middle school. They don't even have high school. These guys are just trying to survive. And in a situation like this, because they're not educated, a lot of the girls will start having children super young when they're still teenagers. And so then they're just trying to survive.
Yeah.
But the ones who do get an opportunity, who are able to relocate to another country, they really embrace their studies because they know this is their way out.
Yeah. It's amazing. One of the things that I've recognized in life is when I get stressed or I got things going on, sometimes I just need to take a step back, put things in perspective. And when I do that and I realize all the things I do have in my life, it lends a sense of gratitude, and that really helps me personally, kind of change my mindset on things. And so I'm hoping that that's what we can do with some of our kids here. Any final words of advice or anything for our 8th graders? Real quick, 30 seconds.
Figure out what excites you and what you need to do to make these things happen. And my big piece of advice is to get out there. Get out there and explore. Get out there on adventures and have an amazing life.
Awesome. Got one final question for you. We're saving this till the end, okay? I found this in the Helena High Hall of Fame. I'm wanting to know who had the better Hall of Fame picture.
I don't know. I got mine's a little more ridiculous. I will definitely say that.
So I get beat up a lot about having the blonde hair. You remember in the late '90s when that was kind of the thing?
Yeah.
The blonde hair, the boy band.
You were state champion, so I think you're given a little bit of latitude there.
Awesome. Hey, well, I really appreciate you coming on. Thanks for making this happen. I really hope it means, and I think it will mean a lot to a lot of our kids, and above all, please be safe out there. And thanks again.
Thank you, sir. Good luck,
all right,
everybody.
have a good day. All right, I need to quickly go through this to keep this under 15 minutes. Last week's winners: Ella Kai, Emily League, Samuel Royale, Anson Segrist, Kelly Zamora, and Carly Kleeman. The answer was arms. This week's Jelly Bean question of the week: which of these is not a girl's name? Which of these 4 are not a girl's name? If you think you know the answer, get your answers submitted to the Bob Box. Tune in next week to see if you're a winner. All right, Bobcats, let's make it a great week at the Helena Middle School.